3, 2. Okay, so guess what? We live. Hey, I'm excited. I have two very special individuals here with us now. We will have some more people joining in as the live goes on. So, really quick, we've had a very interesting couple of weeks, right? So, it kind of all really started with Ahmaud Arbery.
Yeah.
Everybody witnessed the shooting and the incident, and there was a large dichotomization between, I mean, with everybody, right? Blacks, whites, whatever. It was Democrats, Republicans, whatever. It was just a large split in ideology and people trying to really analyze what happened, people trying to put it together. We had some great discussions that spurred as a result of that. And I believe that overall, the conversation was good and it was necessary. Uh, so yes, feedback. Somebody give a little feedback.
Can we
Hey, I can barely
Right. Okay. So yeah, let me.
All right, I'm gonna mute myself.
Okay. All right. Here we go. We got Shaka.
Yo, I'm backstage, man.
All right. Okay. So we got Shaka. So we want to talk about what everybody saw either today or last night with Charlemagne the God and Joe Biden. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I woke up this morning to that crazy.
Yes. So everybody's kind of like in shock and in awe. Like, how in the world did this actually happen? I was shocked. I know all of y'all were shocked too. So my little brief perspective of my rundown is, first and foremost, I hate to see how one side clearly covers for their racism and their rhetoric, and they hold the other side accountable. It's just like, just imagine if Donald Trump actually said what Joe Biden said yesterday. Just imagine if that was Donald Trump. The outrage from the left. I mean, it would totally be a dragging on CNN, MSNBC, wherever. Oh, yeah. It would be a total dragging. And it kind of. Go ahead. No, go ahead.
What I think is interesting is that today, when I was reading the commentary from some of my friends on the left, I was thinking in my mind back in 2016 when Trump was presenting. I don't remember exactly where he was, but it was a majority Black audience, and he was saying, hey, guys, why don't you, it's been 40 or 50 years, you guys have been voting one particular way, why don't you put your chances on me? Give me an opportunity. Yeah. Well, you know, the whole what do you have to lose thing. And because I think at his core, he's a salesperson and he understands that the Black vote is political currency. Now, when we compare that to what Joe Biden said today, he didn't go on the #1 urban radio station and say, hey guys, I know there's certain things over the last 20 or 30 years that I probably would not support today. There were some consequences of legislation that negatively affected the Black community, but I still want to ask you guys to please still give me a vote. That's not what he said. He disrespected Black people by feeling, he didn't even ask for our vote. What he said was, if you don't vote for me, then you must not actually be a Black person. Now, I'm not gonna vote for him, but the question I would have to my friends on the other side of the aisle is, how do you feel about the fact that he doesn't even respect you enough with his legacy to ask you for your vote?
Now, I don't know if we're waiting for answers back or if somebody else is trying to comment. So, and Vanessa, it's funny that you say that, right? Because that's the presidential thing to do, right? This is supposed to be the Democrats' golden child. The golden child would say, this vote, these people, the vote represents these people that I value. Let me see if what they think they can find in another party can be found through. He didn't do that. He went to
Danielle, they're saying your audio is bad.
Huh?
They're saying your audio is bad.
My audio's bad. Let me see.
Okay.
Is the audio better now?
That's
okay, yes, much better.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna do it this way. So pretty much what I was saying is that would have been the presidential thing to do, what Vanessa was speaking of, which is to say, for those Black people that feel that they've got to get something represented on the Republican side, let me step in and see what I can do for you. That would have been presidential, but that's not what the Democrat Party does. The Democrat Party plays the same hand. Now, Vanessa hinted to the fact that the Black vote is important. Our vote is needed. Our vote has always been needed, and even though the Democrats try to court the Hispanic vote, they've got to keep us, the Black vote, as the base. Now, with that being said, with a group of people and you need their vote that bad, why would you look to divide them? The comment that he said, he's not even a day one president yet, and he's already dividing his core base. And my problem is, the one thing that I'm most disappointed about is not that Joe Biden pulled that card, but that he felt he had permission due to how other Black Democrats, what he must have heard, he must have been on the inside of a lot of conversations to think that you can go on a Black radio station like that and tell that to Charlemagne. This is a guy that he put his hard work in. He came up, he made wrong decisions, he made right decisions. But to sit in front of him and tell him that where he's at right now, the fact that he wants to engage in this conversation, giving him respect to hear what he has to say, and to say he's not Black, look how he rushed that out. He made sure he didn't close out the show without getting that out there. And I think that that's the problem. Within our community, we've been sloppy with how we treat each other. And due to that, it's allowing other races and other people to treat us with disrespect, because we've got to reconcile within ourselves that it's okay to be any direction of Black you want to be in.
And I think Joe Biden felt like, I didn't watch the whole interview, but I saw certain clips, and he's so used to getting these sort of softball kid glove interviews. It's almost an affront that Charlemagne would actually press him on his legacy in the Black community. And he didn't fall back. There was no humility. There was just indignation that you are questioning my legacy and how it affects people that look like you. And I think people really need to ask themselves, is this really the alternative? Is this really the appropriate alternative to Trump?
So, all right, Elvin, you got something to say? Welcome in, brother.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? What's going on with y'all? How y'all doing?
All right, man. What's going on? You watch the Trump? You watch Joe Biden. What's your thoughts on that?
Man, listen. So I agree definitely with the sister said, man. I was offended by it. This is where it has become the problem. And I'm a Democrat, and the problem is definitely with, and me saying it, and it's kind of shameful. But the fact is, when you're Black, you're supposed to vote Democrat. So because of that, they don't have to do anything anymore to earn the Black vote. Because if you're Black, that's your party. You understand what I'm saying? So it doesn't matter anymore what he says, what he does. You know, the expression now is anybody but Trump. So they wouldn't give a damn if Joe Biden went out here and slapped a Black woman and said, you know, you whatever coon be, they're voting for Biden. You understand what I'm saying? And when we've gotten to the point now where we've accepted the fact that this is going to be the lesser of the two evils, so this is who we're going with. And it's like you say, it's sad. Like, we had better candidates that should have won over Joe Biden. The fact that he still got through the Democratic nominations, and no one ever held him on the forefront with the 94 crime bill. That I can't get past that. You know, when do you come back and apologize for it? You had 8 years under Obama to correct your crime bill that you never touched.
But that's what's funny. The Democrats never apologized for anything. They never apologized for slavery. They never apologized for
your audio, Danielle.
My audio. Why do you keep harping on? This is an S10 phone. You know, you're messing around with my audio.
Yeah. I don't know. It's going in and out. It's cooperating a little bit. It's cooperating.
I'm gonna put it closer to my face so if I offend somebody, I hope What I'm saying is the Democrats have never apologized for anything.
We can't.
It's like you're fading. It sounds like you're fading.
It's like you're fading.
Okay, y'all gonna get me moved.
Shaka, you want to say something? What's she getting her audio together?
Well, I'm not gonna be really long. I just wanted to come in and say, I'm disappointed to a certain degree because the same message that we've been saying for years, probably me and you, I know for sure, Shakim, you've been saying the same message that no political party really, they don't respect us. So when you don't respect somebody, you don't have to go the extra mile of working for them. It's kind of like in a relationship. If somebody has an open relationship, as far as not open as far as dating other people, but all their business is on social media, sex life, what my girl can do, how big my man size is, and everything like that. If you don't respect your relationship, nobody else will respect it. And that's what I'm seeing as far as in the black relationship with the Democrats is we don't respect ourselves as far as demanding legislation or demanding bills that actually work for us. So they don't have to do anything to appease us. They can just go out there and say, vote for me. And we go vote Democrat every time. So the lesser of two evils, I just want to say that's a myth. Like I said, Trump compared to any politician, you can't compare it. As far as harming the black community, he hasn't done that yet. So until he does that, then we can't hold him as an evil to the black community. So he is not really the lesser of two evil games. If you want to play that, you got to go with Trump.
And one of the things I say as
Vanessa, give me 1 second, right? Elvin, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
So, do you believe? To answer the question, hold on. Do you believe with Shaka just as being a Democrat, right? He said that Trump is the lesser of the two evils. Do you agree with that?
Let me tell you my problem with Trump. I am a history. I follow history. I didn't forget the Central Park Five. The Central Park Five. I didn't forget the actions and stuff that Trump has said in the past. So, let's not forget when Trump, who was the lady he called? I brought her in, I fired her, and what he called her, and excuse my language on the show, but he called her what, a dog bitch? You know what I'm saying? Like, Trump has shown many times before who he is, and I guess because he partnered with Kanye, that was his invite to the cookout. You understand what I'm saying?
No. I want to jump in on that. Being a New Yorker.
Go ahead.
Now, being a New Yorker and being from Brooklyn, I will say this. How Trump was is how he always was. And all of the rappers and everybody in New York, everybody was down with Trump and wanted to be Trump and wanted to be with Trump. So with that being said, let's not talk about what we're forgiving Trump for, because one thing he has is a leopard that's never changed its spots. But when you say that you've not forgotten what he's done, I've not forgotten anything that the Democrats have done, and they have spent longer doing it to us than Trump showing up on the scene for 4 years. So I think still the issue with this conversation is that as Democrats, because that's at the end of the day, even though we've been, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay, because before nobody can hear me. At the end of the day, we can get upset at Biden for what he said, but he was given permission by Black people in the sense of how Black Democrats speak about conservatives, only because we have a different now. We all still want, let's kind of break this down. We all still want progress for our people, empowerment for our people, opportunities for our people, stability, families, unities for our people. Right now, the only thing that's a disagreement on is that we want it in different directions. Now, with that being said, whatever has over the years of him being a Democrat from Black Democrats, because I heard nobody make an apology. All of my Facebook friends that were Democrat, nobody called them out. It was just like, yo, that was kind of like wrong. Everybody's like on the hush hush. So with that being said, we've got to start treating each other with better respect.
All right, so I just want to say, we're not friends on Facebook, but I called him out this morning, and I'm a Democrat, and Shakim can tell you that. That was like my first post this morning was like, yo, hold on, I don't check that. See, let me explain like this. Regardless of the fact of Republican or Democrat, I'm still a black man, so I will never take justification from a white man. I don't care what he is to tell me and measure my blackness. You know what I'm saying? You don't get to measure my blackness and your privilege, because you don't have to go through the things that I go through, and your fear for your children aren't the same fear that I have to fear for mine. So you don't get to measure my blackness. So that's what offended me with what Biden said. Again, Biden was not my choice neither. I'm not a Trump fan. I'm not a Trump fan, but I didn't vote for Biden. I can assure y'all that. I did not vote for Biden. I just, to me, and I understand the conservative, and I get it. There's a lot of things about Trump I just can't get down with Trump, right? So to me, I have to pick the lesser of the two evils, which, regardless of me, is I hate the fact that this is the choice I'm with. Like, I don't have a candidate that I can stand behind and say, hey, this man here is going to do the justice for us. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
Then don't vote.
Hey, hold on, let Vanessa go. I cut Vanessa off. Let me let Vanessa answer.
Yeah.
Let's chop with you. Go ahead, Vanessa.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. What I wanted to say is I'm a registered Republican, right? But in a perfect world, I would be an independent. The only reason I'm a registered Republican is because I don't think that Black people should put all their political eggs in one basket. We stand to benefit when both parties are competing for our attention. And I think what Joe Biden said today is a perfect example of the consequence of what happens when 90% of us vote one particular way. Now, I'm not one of those registered Republicans that say all Black people should be Republicans and all of our problems will be solved overnight. I happen to think that an ideal split would be 30% of us are registered Republicans, 30% of us are registered Democrats, and the other 40% of us are independents. What happens is both parties then say, okay, now that we don't know which way they're going to go, let's try to bring the best of what we think they need to the table. So it's really important that we analyze how we're viewed on both sides, because I'm very critical of the right. Shakim knows, because we're friends on Facebook. Whenever it comes to issues of excessive force or police brutality against Black people, conservatives always say, but what about Black on Black crime? And we need to be able to talk about not just the issues on the other side, but the issues on our side as well. Because if we can come together, regardless of whatever our political identities are, but we put our community first, we all stand to benefit from it.
Republicans say that too.
Say what?
What about Black on Black crime?
That's what she said.
We said that.
I was being critical of Republicans.
Okay. I thought
time a situation like Ahmaud Arbery happens,
yeah.
We're rightfully upset. They say, but what about Black on Black crime? So I'm critical of my side. So you should be critical of your side too, which you said you were today.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah.
Hey, so Elvin, you want to answer that question? Jay just asked you a question. He said, Elvin, so why do you want to vote for Biden? Is he really the lesser of the evils?
Yes. And that's sad to say. Yes. I mean,
no.
So I mean, again, it's one thing, like you said, y'all said it best. You said Trump has shown you who he is and he's never changed strides, right? And he hasn't. Trump has so many things against him. Let's talk about the people, the situations where it's known that he wouldn't rent the Black people his apartments, hotels. He wouldn't rent them to Black people. He wouldn't rent the Black tenants. There's countless things against Trump.
Wait a minute, but he received an award from Jesse Jackson. Now hold up now. Let's not go too far back. Wait. He received an award in New York City from Jesse Jackson. From who? There's a famous picture that. Can you hear me?
From who?
You don't know.
I can. If you want me to, I've been quiet over here. I've been quiet.
No. Jesse sold out sounds long. Jesse sold the black community a long time ago. Come on now. Listen. Let me ask a question. Just what you say with Jesse, right?
Go ahead, and we let Shaka go next. Shaka's still waiting.
All right. And I'm just going to address to Jesse, right? Just to Jesse. It's well known, if you don't got big news cameras behind you, you don't get Jesse Jackson attention. Because they've had 3-4 press conferences in Georgia. I've been to 2 of them. I don't remember seeing Jesse on none. I know this made world news. And that ain't big enough stage. You know, when you get all the channels coming in, you'll get Jesse. So yeah, I don't even know if we still claim Jesse. I think we done convert Jesse to the conservative side.
All right, Shaka, what you got?
Yeah, Shaka.
So here we go. I think Vanessa said something that I was gonna say, but she knocked it out the park. So my other part is, and this is not directed to the man that's on here. It's what he's saying is the normal thing that the black community says. They have a talking point, and it's like a cookie cutter response when you talk about Trump. And then to say that he's not the lesser of 2 evils, you have Joe Biden that wrote the mass incarceration bill. It's like, how do you compare somebody that said the Central Park 5 need to be locked up or whatever the case be, to compare to somebody that actually went to go lock us up with mass incarceration? So it's more of a lot of black people have a feeling, and it's like, oh, he hurt my feelings, he said this, he hurt my feelings, he said that. But as far as what has impacted the black community that he's done, I haven't seen anything. And then dealing with the lawsuit, is that my phone?
I don't know.
Somebody.
I hear it, but I can't tell where it's coming from.
Okay, it's not like but anyway, with the lawsuit situation, that was a couple tenants that had a bad record of basically tearing up houses and things of such. You got to dig into that actual lawsuit to find out that these people, you can go right now, and if you have a bad record of your last place you tore up and you wrecked, a landlord or somebody you buying from is not going to sell to you. That has nothing to do with him being racist. It's just, when we get told no, I notice in society, when we get told no, the first thing we yell out is racism. Now, could it be true? Yes, but for the main part, if I know I fucked up some apartments, I know I dipped out, broke my lease, I know it's a chance if I go to the next place, they're going to tell me, hey, sir, I'm sorry, the last place you went to, we can't rent you, you broke your lease, and you didn't pay them back. You're in default. What do I say then? Do I say, hey, you're racist? Or do I got to say, yeah, I did break my lease. Yeah, I did fuck up the apartment. So that's when you look into that lawsuit. Look deeper into that lawsuit that everybody throws around, that he didn't, rent to black people. And then you have the other side of what Judge Joe Brown and all them saying, yeah, he the one that got us to get loans from the city and things of such, black businesses. So you gotta look at what's a smear campaign compared to what's actually truth.
Let me say this right here, right? And this is what you can do, the biggest thing. You realize when Obama became president, right? There wasn't a bunch of black activist movement people coming around, black racists coming out screaming Obama. Black people were empowered, but black racists weren't coming out screaming, kill Whitey and jumping on Obama train. When Trump got into office, look at all the racist people who cling to him. Tell me when Trump ever came out and said, hey, we're not part of that. I'm not part of that. This isn't who I am. I don't want this kind of affiliation with me.
He's been did that. He's done that. He's done that numerous times.
He always calls them good people.
Let me ask you this. When was the last time you watched a Trump speech?
I actually do listen to him.
When was the last time? When was the last time you sat back there? I'm not talking about the COVID.
Oh, okay.
I'm not talking about the COVID. I'm talking about before COVID.
Before COVID,
let me see what he's talking about.
Might have been last year.
Okay, so I at least seen Trump, distance himself from white supremacy and things of such at least 4 or 5 times on separate occasions.
The same man who was saying that these are fine people. That man.
Did you watch that whole? Did you watch that whole speech?
I know what he said. I saw what he said.
I'm gonna give you a chance. Either you didn't understand it, or you just not being totally honest.
What he said, and not verbatim, but what he said is that he didn't want to make a comment. Then he said there was fine people on both sides, or whatever the case. But he never came out and said, "Hey, I am not about that. I am not associated with that. I'm not." You know who I got to give a lot of respect to as a Republican. John McCain.
You want to do a do a friendly bet of $200? I can show you in that same speech that he did separate himself.
He said what? He came out and said, "No, I am not affiliate." I'm just asking.
He separated himself from the white supremacy or whatever the supremacists that was there. Yes, he did. They gave you a sound clip.
Real quick, please. I noticed that whenever these conversations happen, they tend to devolve into like people getting into arguments about what Trump says. So let's say I follow your logic, right? That Trump is a racist. Let's say that, right? I have my own perspectives on that, but let's say we agree. Why is it that the Democrats don't respect you enough to tell you, yeah, we know he's like that, but here are the solutions we have for the Black community? Why is it every single 4 years, whenever they're talking about the other side, it's Joe Biden said Mitt Romney was going to put us back in chains. Why doesn't he respect our intellect enough? Why don't they respect us as equals enough to actually have policy discussions with us? Why does it always devolve into, they don't like you, so don't vote for them? And why don't we ever question that? Like, okay, yeah, he doesn't like me, but what are you going to do for me?
Correct.
So, O'Brien, you want to say something? I saw you look like you were about to speak, and I'll go after you. What's going on, OB?
First and foremost, peace, everybody. What's going on? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
What's happening?
Everybody, okay, cool. Good to be part of the conversation. I'm still trying to catch up on where I'm at. I was having technical difficulties. I'm and the power out, so I'm trying to make it work.
Yeah, you got some technical difficulties, brother. Go ahead.
No problem. Elvin, you finish your point and I'll clean myself up.
Okay, so look. So I saw someone ask the question about John McCain. Why did I say I respect John McCain? Let me explain why I respect John McCain. When he was on his debate at his speech, remember when the lady got up and she called Obama all kind of names? And remember what he said? He stopped her and he said, "Hey, he's not all that at all. He's not any of that. We're just two men competing for a position. Mm-hmm. He's actually a fine man." I can respect that. They
still call him a racist, though? They still call John McCain a racist.
Who called John McCain a racist?
CNN.
Have you ever seen anyone, when John McCain was running for president, holding up the Nazi flag and all the white supremacists standing there supporting John McCain?
They called the Tea Party movement a racist movement against the first Black president.
Okay, so what I'm saying,
my point is this: it's always, and I don't think that I don't empathize with your perspective. I do. I just want us to elevate the conversation in the Black community and hold the other side accountable for talking to us as if we're equals. They don't do that. All they ever say is don't vote for them because they're racist. They did the same thing to John McCain. They just started liking John McCain because they felt like John McCain was going after Trump. They didn't like John McCain then either. They called him a racist when somebody asked him a question and he said that one in a debate. There was wall-to-wall coverage of John McCain being a racist. And why is that the only thing that they say to us? That's my question. That's their only talking point. Because at their core, they don't fundamentally respect us. Black people.
Black people? Okay.
Yes. That's what I mean when I say us.
You're talking about Democrats and Republicans? Don't respect Black people?
I'm talking about Democrats. They don't fundamentally respect Black people because the only thing that they say whenever it comes to trying to get us to vote for them is don't vote for the other side because they're racist. They don't like you. They want to put you in chains. Right. And I'm saying, even if that's true, I'm not even debating that point. What are you going to do in my community? And what have you done over the last 40 or 50 years?
60 years.
Or 60 years to prove to me that I should continue to render my support to you. That's my point.
Elvin?
So
And
so
I don't
look, all right. So no. Listen.
people.
So this is, and I've got that. Let me explain. The candidate that would have and that did address what he was doing for the black people would have been Bernie. Bernie was all for it. Bernie was labeling out exactly what his strategy was, what he had planned out. But
Agreed.
but you see what I'm saying? Bernie
But
was on the mark.
The establishment hates him.
But
they could
let me explain.
Hold on, Vanessa.
Hold on. But he didn't get the votes because Biden riding off Obama coattail. Because everybody loves Obama. So because of Biden is associated with Obama, that's why they're voting for Biden. Biden probably could have walked up there and didn't say anything. Biden never dropped any points to me that was like, oh man, that was deep. Bernie has been out here. Bernie would have been the best candidate that would have came on the forefront and would have had all these answers to solution. But see, Bernie lost because he's not as popular as Biden. You know, and that's our fault. That is definitely our fault. That is the black community fault because now, once again, you're going for the name. You're not paying attention to the politics. You're not paying attention to the strategy or what's best for us. You just want to be on the name, you know. And so, yeah, we eat that. But again, like I said, I want you to understand, I am not a Biden fan. I am not. But I'm definitely not a Trump fan because, again, to me, the affiliation. Answer me this. Why do people feel if Trump is not a racist? Why do they feel so comfortable every time they come out affiliating racism with them? And I'm not talking about the news. I'm talking about the people. You're talking white people standing in Nazi flags. You're talking about the KKK and everyone coming out when it comes to Trump, and they have no problem pledging allegiance to Trump. Now, I want somebody to show me not how Trump words it around to make it soft, like, oh, well, there's fine people on both sides. Show me one time when Trump came out and said, hey, I ain't got nothing to do with y'all. I don't share y'all beliefs. That's not who I am. You see what I'm saying? Show me one time. Go ahead, brother. Go ahead.
I just want, Elvin, I appreciate your points. I know you get real passionate. Say word.
Yes, sir.
Vanessa asked the question, and I think it's a worthy question for the Democrats. And let me just announce to the whole group, I don't rock with no Republicans or no Democrats either way. I'm not on that. But I understand Elvin's point real quick about Bernie Sanders, who was against the healthcare and the banks. I think we should have an interest in that, being against corporate America and being against the healthcare industry, which is robbing both of us. Everyone's being robbed by those two industries. Bernie was going to fight that. But Vanessa was asking, what have the Democrats done? We're not boosting up Republicans. We're taking that out. Take Trump out. I want to know, Vanessa wants to know, what have the Democrats done for black people in 60 years? Because the reason why a lot of black people are leaving the Democratic Party and going Republican, because they haven't seen results. So I want to know what the Democrats have done. Take out Biden. He ain't been elected yet. What have the Democrats done for black people?
Yeah. Yeah, hey, listen, I'm going to tell you like this here. I'm going to tell you like this. The truth of the matter is, I saw something that it didn't matter who was in office, Republican and Democrat. The black community never changed. The black community always stayed the same. So, you know, you're right. You're right. Exactly. You know, even when Obama was in president, the ghetto stayed the ghetto. You know what I'm saying? So if to answer the question, Democrats, you're right. We've never had a policy that came out and said, hey, look, this is what we're going to do. We're going to improve your schools. We're going to improve anything. It wasn't to gentrification down here in Charleston that the communities that were majority black started improving. You know, all of a sudden potholes getting fixed, streets don't flood no more, street lights getting put up, you know, cameras in neighborhoods. People, you know, so I get it. I totally understand. Again, but however, I can't do Trump. I cannot.
And I understand that. But since we're in a position where neither Republicans or Democrats are looking out for us, now we're in the situation where we have to kind of strategically pick candidates just based on what our needs are and what our plans are. But I will say this. I've already, in my opinion, kind of clowned the Democrats. I understand. I clowned the Republicans too, but now I want to bring up black leadership. Unless Shakim, you want to take it into a different direction.
Come on, we listening. We listening.
It's your show. Okay.
No.
So black leadership, Republican and Democrat, now want to put black leadership to the test over the last 60 years. whether it doesn't matter which side they went on. I feel as though Black leadership has also failed us. I'm saying I think our generation should be the generation that does the evaluation, and we say what progress have we attained using the method of voting, using the method of prayer, using the method of marching and stuff like that. What results have been yielded? I think we need to go in a different direction. Shakim already knows where I'm going to go with this because.
Oh, they audio issues. Come on, Marif, get that camera fixed, man. Brother's coming in with the bootleg camera. So while Marifa is at a standstill and we can't really hear him. So one of the things that I think why a lot of Black people actually do, and this is something that the Republicans are eventually going to have to learn to do, it's the outreach. So okay, he's back. Okay.
But keep going. My signal is trash.
All right, cool. So no matter what the Democrats don't do, if you don't have Republicans or conservatives coming in the neighborhood being able to articulate something that is better, they're not being able to articulate a plan of action that has tangible results attached to it, you're never going to see Black people run and embrace the Republican Party because there's no outreach. There's nothing for them to move. So essentially what happens is if the Democratic Party continues to just even be there, you know what I'm saying? Just look at the Community Resource Center. I had every single Democratic candidate coming here saying, hey, let me help you do this. Let us help do. I mean, every single one. Do I have Republicans reaching out like that? No. So the thing is, no matter what the Democratic Party doesn't do, if the Republicans don't come with something that is tangible or better, people are just going to stay where they are. Or just say the hell with it. Danielle, you was going to say something. I can't. Danielle's on mute. Hold on. My bad. Okay,
I was trying to be polite, but you had me on mute the whole show. So I was like, all right.
I didn't realize it. I'm sorry. I didn't see.
No, you're fine, because Vanessa was getting it, and dude in the red shirt, I appreciate you, bro, for being the only Democrat here. Yeah, and I knew he was getting it. So I was like, all right, I'm just gonna stay back and wait on tag team. But here's the thing I want to say about
Elvin ready for it.
I say we should keep beating him up, giving him that Republican smackdown.
Exactly. But I'm going to say this, and Shakim, you and I have spoken about this. Now, this is where we got to get honest, and we got to call a spade, and we got to look and see kind of what's going on. Okay. When you look at outreach and you look at relations, now Trump did a huge thing, and he set sort of like a press.
Man, y'all gotta get y'all cameras right.
It's not me this time.
Let's go with me. What I have to lose?
Okay. Okay, you back. We hear you.
All right. Now, Elvin, that's the red shirt. Now, we know that when asked what have the Democrats done, it was a pause, right? Because really, you can't quickly tangible what the. Now, hold on, because you know I've been on mute forever, so trying to get this out. But we know that they have not done enough tangibly that you can be able to just rattle off. Trump has delivered to the Black community things, even when it comes to the one that's closest to my heart, funding Black colleges, that Democrats couldn't deliver on consistently for years. Now let's look at that. When he made that call to us and he said, you guys try the Republican Party, and he said, you guys try me, what do you have to lose? When he delivered on that, Black people are still not appreciative of it. In terms of we're not any more open to the Republican Party after what they've delivered to us than we were beforehand. Now you tell me, who likes being in a relationship that seems one-sided, where you can invest and give and try to create an inroads, and that community still is very closed off to you? Now, how does that set a precedent for anyone else to think that it's worth it to pursue this relationship? So we got to own that part. We got to be the open part as well to want to have that.
Because he donated to the Black colleges?
No, that's the one that's closest. Wait a minute. That's the one that's closest to my heart next to religious freedom. But what I'm saying is, he made a direct appeal to us, which no one had done that before. The Democrats assumed our vote. He made a direct appeal to us. He delivered on tangible things for our community. Now, remember, when you got the chance to speak for the Democrats, you had nothing to say, but well, or the equivalent of. So with that being said, when Shakim talks about outreach and continuing making that inroads in our community, we got to kind of show it back. And I don't think we do that. And let me tell you why. Because of the same thing, and I'm bringing it back to Joe Biden, because I noticed we're talking about McCain, we're talking about everybody else, and we're still not bringing it to Biden being held accountable. We're not open, and we're not doing that, because when you look at Black Democrats and you look at Black people as a whole, we're still 90-something% Democrat. We're just as closed off as we are with empowering Joe Biden to be able to come out and say that if you are not voting for him and you're voting for anything else, you're not Black. That's the problem. That's the messaging that we're sending.
All right, go ahead, O'Brien. I'll let her go ahead. Go ahead, and I'll respond. Go ahead.
All right. First, let me address some comments. I'm laughing because trying to sell us on the Republican Party is goofy to me. Republicans remind me of the Haitian Revolution when.
Somebody might. I can hear you. I think you got the feedback though.
You think it's me? Okay, let me try to mute.
Okay.
I think. Well, anyway, I'll just say this: the Democrats have serious problems, right? There's serious problems there. But to try to sell us on Republican, like that's the answer for Black people, to me is just crazy. That's just my personal opinion. It's just crazy. He offered some benefits and some perks.
Wait, hold on a second.
Gotta hold on for me, sister. Gotta hold on for me. I just don't. I'm just giving my opinion. I think that's blasphemous. If we look at the history of the Republicans and how they have captured white conservatism, and we know what white conservatism is in the history of that in this country. You can't get mad if Black people aren't listening to Republicans. You just got to understand you can't get mad at that. But I do think it's blasphemous and crazy for us to continue with the Democratic Party that's never done anything. I asked the question before, what have the Democrats done? And the answer is nothing, and we all agree on that. But the answer isn't Republicans either. So I'm waiting for some questions. Why can't we start our own thing? Why can't we do that? Have our own political system, at least within our communities. And then I also, when y'all answer that, I kind of want to get, I do want to get with that question of who defines Blackness. I'm not sure if y'all covered that. I might have missed that. If y'all have moved on, my fault. I'll get off of that. But I do want to address that also.
Well, can I answer you, brother? I agree with you that a lot of, I used to be like that too. When I first became a registered Republican, I was kind of like, oh my God, all of our problems will be solved as long as Black people vote this way. And I said earlier, I don't think that. I think we need political competition in the Black community. But I agree with you that Republicans, I'm not into the whole blaming the voter thing, because you have a product and you need to convince me that I need to buy into your product. Like when we're selling stuff door to door or whatever it is, we don't blame consumers for not wanting a particular product. We blame the faulty way that the salespeople pitch whatever it is that they're trying to sell. So with that being said, I believe that Black conservatives, unfortunately, I won't take all of them because I know some of the ones that are kind of on the national scene, but there's a core of them I believe represent. While I fully agree with everybody's ability to say whatever it is that they want to say, I want to be able to make sure that I underscore that point. I believe, unfortunately, a lot of people who speak to me say that they don't necessarily want to do the Black Republican or the Black conservative thing because they feel as though Black Republicans and conservatives are only into pandering to their white base. And part of the reason why we can't break that monopoly in the Black community is because I think sometimes we use their talking points without applying the unique circumstances that Black people face in this country. So I just wanted to say that I agree with you partially.
Can I just say one thing here? Because I think you guys are talking about something that's important, and I'm glad that you guys brought it up. So, unfortunately, and it may be fortunate or unfortunately, I'm not quite sure how I feel on it. In some ways, I'm in the middle. We are in a two-party system, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't have third and fourth and fifth parties. And there's a possibility that that might not be a good idea, because when you have more parties, they can partisan an issue to the point where the president only had to get 40% of the vote and he only ran on one issue. So there is a plus to having a two-party system, because it keeps both parties having to apply enough effectiveness on a wide variety of platforms to make them, appealable to anyone to vote. So there is some reasons why the two-party system is good and why we just can't break off and just start our own thing. But I will say this, Vanessa, you do make a good point that, when you're selling a product, it's the salesman's job, it's their responsibility to make sure that this is my audience. Maybe I need to say it this way. Maybe I need to do it that way. Nobody has given the Republican Party any A's for marketing. They've not done a good job of marketing to us. They've not done a good job of knowing, and I don't even know if they can. Black people, we're a tough bunch. You can't just roll up on us with anything. You can't just roll up on us smiling in our face. And no matter what, we're going to look at you side eye. So we're not an easy base. But here's the thing. When the salesperson takes the best of what they do and they go to the door and they get ready to do their pitch and the door is slammed in their face, there has to be some openness to want to hear the pitch. So yeah, Republicans have to package it better. I'm not a fan of the packaging. That's why I'm a Black Republican reaching out to Black Republicans, and give us some credit. And I hope Elvin can too. In this Black conservative movement, it's been a lot of Black Republicans taking the lead to reach out to other Black people. We've been doing that. We've not left that up to white Republicans. We've gone in there and we've trying to get our own. So I think there's some slack to be given on both sides, and we do only have two parties to work within.
What you got to say about that, Elvin?
So I'm thinking about this, right? And as she's saying Black Republicans and Black conservatives, right? Well, I was in Georgia and I was out to the scene where Arbery got killed, right? And in the neighborhood that he's in, everyone in that neighborhood got a Trump flag up in that neighborhood. Everyone, every house. There's probably 4 Black families in that neighborhood, maybe 4 or 5, but every house had Trump flags in that neighborhood. Do you know how racist that neighborhood was? It was completely racist. So when you're saying that you want Black folks to trust Republicans, who represents y'all to show that y'all even like us? Where is that? You got Candace Owen. She was supposed to be the exit person for the conservative movement for Black people leaving Democrat being conservative. Well, what does she say? Look what her followers are saying. So what is it that you're appealing to us that will make us say, you know what? Maybe we should give them another try. We should go
there. But Candace doesn't represent the entirety of the Black conservative movement. She's been a conservative for the last 4 years. Some of us have been in the game way longer than that. And I understand she has one of the loudest microphones, so people would think that she represents all Black conservatives. I could tell you personally, and I'm sure you follow Shakim's show, you see that there is a rift in the Black conservative movement. Some are saying the whole, but what about Black on Black crime? Others, like myself, are saying, you know what, guys, we need to be able to call this stuff out, even when it doesn't lie within the comfortable way we typically like to talk about race. So I agree with you there. I fully agree with you, and you have a very, very valid point.
So in the Democratic Party, none of us are doing that, Black and white. They're white Democrats as well. And none of us are divided on if that was injustice or racist. You have white.
All right, so let me jump in on that.
Okay.
I think the Democrats, they kind of remain a little bit more silent, right? So they use the passive aggressive type of approach. They might just don't intervene. So they know it's very unpopular for them to be outspoken about it. They might not articulate it, loudly, but their silence is enough for them to say, for people to notice that, where are they? So I think it's just different methods that are employed. And like they said, a lot of the Republicans were like, yo, but you did have a lot on both sides who did agree that there should be justice for Ahmaud Arbery. So we're kind of really looking at two different sides of the spectrum. One thing that I do agree with Danielle, which she said, we're not really open to hearing what anybody else has to say. In all honesty, like Black people, we really don't even want to hear, because there's been times where I said, you know what, me having done 8.5 years in federal prison before, there's no way that somebody in prison could be upset if Donald Trump let them out of prison through the First Step Act. And people would still argue with me and say, well, he's just pandering. Okay, so what? If these gentlemen and these young women are getting out of prison and being able to get back with their lives because of some sort of disparity that existed in the system, count that as a win. Don't go so quick to just beat it in the head. Okay, I understand there's still more things that need to be done with prison reform, but don't just take that we gained and say, you know what, well, it's Trump. Who cares? I don't give a damn about it. It was Trump. And I think when we do that, it's dangerous because we don't. It's not like he's giving us the world and we're supposed to worship him. But at the end of the day, let's just look at things that are being done and say, you know what, if this side wants to give us that, we'll take that as a win. If we get something from this end, hey, let's take it as a win. But I think we're too quick to just, push aside without, any sort of, we just disregard it.
Yeah, and Alvin, I wanted to say something. You said that your point is that your side has basically a better response. And I would agree to a certain extent, but do you remember the Trayvon Martin case a couple of years ago with George Zimmerman? George Zimmerman was a registered Democrat who voted for Obama, yet he still saw fit to accost a young man and end his life when I guess that young man tried to defend himself. So we need to stop looking for an enemy just in one particular direction, because we might be surrounded by enemies that we don't know. And I'm going to say this and then I have to go. Malcolm X, who to me is probably one of the most brilliant men to have ever walked the earth, talked about the difference between the wolf and the fox. And he called white liberals foxes. In essence, foxes will play with their prey before they go in for the kill. And we need to be very careful and remember that we may not get everything that we want from either side, but it's very important that we look at both sides objectively and not just automatically push one side away and then automatically just give one side a pass. So that's all I wanted to say. This was a lot of fun. And nice to meet you guys. And I'll just say good night to everybody. Take care.
All right, you take care. All right, Elvin. So what you got to say about that, brother?
So again, I'm trying to think of how I can put this where I don't sound like an extreme, someone extreme. Again, to me, it's bigger than party. Okay, I want to be clear. I'm not going to vote. If Trump was someone who had strategies, someone I agree with, I would vote Republican if I agreed with him. I just don't relate and feel anything with Donald Trump. Now, I don't agree and relate to Biden either, but I relate to Biden and more with Biden than Trump. So I will vote for Biden. Now, that's just.
I got to jump in on that because we got to call something else out. And that's a dangerous voting mentality. Now, don't take this personally, because I think we got to start getting a little bit more diplomatic with how we engage each other when there's differences. I think when I say that it's a dangerous voting mentality, I'm not coming at you directly, but what I'm saying is I'm pretty much hearing you say that because you feel that you do not like Donald Trump, that one, regardless of what he's done for our community, which are undeniable. And the First Step Act was very huge. And for being Black males, I mean, I can't believe how many sweep that under the table like it's not anything.
He did what?
But
what did he do? Tell me what he did again. What did he do?
Let me try to get this right. Can you hear me right? The First Step Act. So what I'm saying is, it's dangerous to say words like feeling, agree, identify. We need to be a people that vote based on results. That's where we've got to change towards. And what I'm saying about you having dangerous voting is, regardless of what side produces what, if you don't like, you don't vote. Now here, let me go ahead and say this. You're pretty much saying that you're voting for a candidate of a party that you can't even list. And we're talking about Black people being, in solidarity with the Democratic Party for over 30 years. You can't even think of a top 5 that comes to your head of what they've done. Regardless of that, and regardless of what Biden has said, and we already see that he's being divisive towards Black people. He knew when he said that Black people were going to be set off today, and we all have been set off. Regardless of all of that, you're saying, I feel. Now, I almost think, even though there's all kind of campaigns about you must vote, if you don't vote, it's a waste of, a slave wanting to vote, all of the kind of extremes we say. But almost a no vote is almost as more responsible than you just voting off of how I feel, because I feel hasn't delivered anything to the Black community. And all of the feel goods that the Democrats that have given us, they're like a bad lover. You don't know why you still stay there, but you think you feel something. We've got to get away from that. And I would just love it if you'd be more open to say, all right, why don't someone who's a Black Republican, let's sit down, plot this out on a piece of paper, see where our community needs to go, where we're not going, and how each side thinks we can get us there. I would love that from you, Alvin. Can you do that for me?
Go ahead, because I'll go ahead. Go ahead.
As far as development of Black people, Democrats have failed on this, so we'll put them to the side. The development of Black people, the role our development plays. Are Republicans willing to acknowledge the need for a full teaching of history, our whole cultural education, which directly impacts Black people? For instance, if you don't teach the significance, the achievements, the accomplishments of Black people and include that in your curriculum, you're going to underdevelop Black people. And when you underdevelop Black people, they lead to things like the prison industrial complex. When you underdevelop Black people, it leads to less achievement. It causes young men and women in school to detach themselves from curriculum, become uninterested. These are all factually proven. So what are the Republicans going to do as far as teaching a full curriculum, cultural education, so that Black people can see their inclusion in history and have a proper understanding of themselves and how they fit into this society? Like, what are Republicans going to do about that?
I guess I'm the only Republican left here. And I will say this, not to be facetious, but we'll require Republicans to do that when I see Democrats do that, because they have not done that. Now, hold on a second. Now, we've got to be fair. We don't have to require, nor can anyone. If you're asking them to put themselves in the Black experience, number one, we don't want people doing that. And number two, they can't. So you're asking me, no, you're asking for a cultural breakdown of the Black child. That's our job to do. That's our kids, our family, our pastors. Now, hold on now. That's some of the problem. We keep giving the things that we need to do for our community to somebody else to do. No, I don't need you.
Danielle, no, that's not what I'm saying.
No,
that's not what he's saying.
Okay.
But no. I think, but you know what? Hold on. Let me say this real quick, Marifa, and I'm gonna let you jump in. But I think I totally agree with what Dan, yes, because when you were saying it, when you was articulating your message, in the back of my mind, I was thinking, okay, that shouldn't be a Democrat or Republican issue. That should be a part of the issues that we embrace as a family, because a Republican can't come in my home and teach my daughter about the history of Ida B. Wells and, some of the Nile Valley civilization contributions and things like that. That's not for a Republican to actually teach. So what we embrace, because the political structure is also within the confines of our homes also. So I think politics has to extend to the family values, the family system, and the family structure, and we teach that within our homes. Now, you can also say Republicans are for school choice, right? Because when you start talking about the Republican agenda, one of the things that they always back are school choice. So school choice components allow us to be more free to start our own schools and to help us be able to choose which school our child attends. Like Baba was saying the other day on our live stream.
That's not what school choice did. School choice is
well, we know that it did. We know that it did. Now we know that it does drain. Now I know what you're going, right?
Yeah, give it all. Don't just do that. Because school choice is the number one thing that is driving gentrification in the black communities.
No. That's another. Wait, hold on a second. My dear Elvin, just hold on 1 second.
All right, I want to finish what I'm saying. I want to be able to finish what I'm saying. Go ahead.
Hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Shakem, I would love it if you can do a whole podcast on school choice, what it means, and what's the opportunities in it for Black people. Because I think, Elvin, you're going to touch on it, of course, but I think it's a huge discussion that needs to be had because we need to be taking more advantage of that. Okay, Elvin.
We can talk about that now. Let's talk about it now.
Go ahead. I'm gonna let OB go then because you know Shakem, I do on this education thing. But go ahead, I'm gonna let OB go.
Okay. Go ahead. I just want to clean up what I'm talking about because in the school system, you learn about white people. You learn about their contributions, their achievements, and if you think history is not a social dynamic, history determines the power relationships you're going to have. If you only learn, if a Black child comes to school and you have and you put this type of history book in there, this is an official textbook that we can put in the school system right now. And we can talk about this right here so that you can understand all perspectives as an American. If don't Republicans say we're Americans? So if you want Americans to be on point, you want the education system to be on point, then you include the experience of all Americans. And anybody can teach this right here. Anybody can teach this. Black people teach white history. What's the problem? Black people teach European history. What's the problem? All you have to do is include it. But see, there's a reason why they don't include history, a proper teaching of it, because it dictates power dynamics. And when you don't teach it, when you leave our experience out, our full history, talking about beyond slavery, not slavery, beyond that, before that, when you teach that correctly, it develops us in a certain way where we will no longer be a stepchild to another group. We will no longer be servants of another group. We'll stand up tall and strong. That's what history does. It's a social science. So I'm asking, what are the Republicans going to do? Because that history has a direct impact on our development. I'm saying it's a key component. I'm asking what the Republicans are going to do. If you want Republicans to vote for you, if you want Black people to vote for you, Black people to join your party, then how are you going to impact the educational system on our behalf? Don't pass over the Democrats. Republicans sell. You said they have a product you want to sell. Sell us on education for Black people.
So school choice.
But you got.
Oh, go ahead, Danielle. Go ahead.
No, I can let you go. No, you can go.
No,
I can jump in after you.
Okay. So okay. I think it all boils down to school choice again, because at the end of the day, with school choice, it allows more flexibility with the creation of an independent school where you can have your own curriculum. That's why you see a lot of Republicans say, you know what? We want our children to be able to go to any school that we choose. You have charter school, even though we know the charter schools were designed initially for what they refer to as white flight, because a lot of them didn't want to go to the neighborhood schools when they started the gentrification process. From what we read, that's why they started. But who's to say that we can't utilize that to our advantage and say, you know what, we want to have the ability to control our own institutions of learning. If you go to a charter school right now, charter schools have way more flexibility over the curriculum that they teach. Charter schools have more flexibility over the hours of operation. They can actually have their own board to govern their own school. They don't need the standard school board that the county has set up. They can develop their own board of directors, so they can even regulate their own discipline process. So they have a wider range of flexibility when you start dealing with charter schools. Yes, they still do have state testing that they have to utilize. They still do. Nevertheless, that it gives more flexibility.
Name the school that has the African American curriculum.
Wait, hold on, guys. Okay, and I get you. Let me jump in here for 2 seconds.
You said school choice. So show me the schools in the
it's
Republican
also by state.
They have a resume.
Hold on. It's also
schools that are teaching this, that are giving providing the cultural education. What schools?
Now hold on a second. We got to jump in here and we got to put some perspective. With everything, we got to keep right perspective, right? Here's what we're doing. One, school choice and charter schools that exist are different by state. I'm in North Carolina. Here, the Democrats run our education. Okay, the Democrats run our education system, and my darling, they're not teaching that either. But here's the other thing that we got to look at, right? We got to make sure we're going to the right place. What you're describing is going to a vegetable store to buy an appliance. We're talking about
North Carolina is a red state.
No, but the education system, that's how we got to do our research.
At the state level, it's controlled by Reds.
Hold on. The school board in Wake County, where I'm at, is run by Democrats. Democrats are right now controlling what's going on in our schools in Wake County.
Your audio.
My audio. Can you hear me now?
It sounds like you in a tunnel.
Thank you. He hears me. What I'm saying is, right now where I'm at in Wake County, the school board is run by Democrats. And they're not teaching that either. But I want to say this here. It's not for a party to teach our children.
That's a cop-out.
No, it's not a cop-out.
It is. It's a cop-out.
If you want that in your education, because what you're saying is our people can't get that in our homes. Our people can't get that in our churches. Our people can't get that in our
White people need to know about Black history too, so they don't have a racist mind. It needs to be taught to everybody.
No. We are talking about what Black people, a party is only responsible for providing us the opportunity. And
you're telling me Republicans aren't going to push that? Fine.
Can you hear Alvin?
He's not hearing me when I say he's trying to go to the vegetable stand and buy a refrigerator.
No, I'm asking what Republicans are going to do on our behalf to get our history taught to everybody. You're not giving anything. You're not doing anything. You're saying it's on everybody else, but you want the Black vote.
That's not a requirement of a party. The requirement of the party is not to teach our history. Do they teach Asian history? Do they teach Native American history?
No, they teach European history. They teach ancient European history, though.
But we're talking about schools. We're talking about a party. A party doesn't teach anybody's education.
That's political. That's political.
No, that's not.
In other words, Republicans aren't going to be jack to solve the education problems for Black people. Cool. Answer. You already answered it. That's your responsibility.
No. Black people don't understand.
Danielle, something. Your mic, something.
Dang.
Hey, Shakim. Yo, I appreciate the time. Right now in South Charlotte, our power's still out. So I was battling with no power, just trying to rock with you. But I only have 2% on the laptop, so now I gotta bow out. I appreciate the time. Much respect, Danielle, Elvin, Shakim. Y'all be good. Tell Vanessa, peace too. Y'all be easy.
Yes, sir. Okay, Danielle. So, Danielle, I want you and Elvin to have this discussion about school choice.
Elvin's mad at me.
No, I'm not. I want. Listen. So this is my only thing. I want you to let me finish. Let me finish.
Yeah,
I'm going. Let me finish. Okay. So let's get out this imaginary world that school choice was something that was ever for Black folks. So school choice, the only reason why school choice was ever invented was to gentrify Black areas. This is the problem. White people were coming into Black areas, but the Black areas were tied to schools that were majority Black schools, schools. They did not want their kids going to those schools. So school choice allowed them to move into a majority Black area and not have to send your kid to that neighborhood school that was tied to that school. But see, the way they do it back vice versa is this. Here in Charleston, I can tell you here in Charleston, there are a bunch of charter schools inside Black communities that less than 10% of the population of Black kids can go to. We just recently, on Charleston County, we just recently made it passed a bill to where they had to open the door to let more of our kids in. In 2020, they had to vote that in. So school choice was never about, oh, okay, well, you know, we're going to give these kids a chance to go to a good school. It was never about that. It was always, well, okay, we want to gentrify this area. But one of the biggest things when people buy houses, the biggest thing that they want to know is what school their kids will go to. Well, if they hear that my kid has to go to this school and this school has this reputation and has this type of population, they're like, no, I'm not coming. So they had to waive that. They had to get rid of that and say, okay, well, look, you can move here, but we'll take your kid to school here. But that does not go for the Black community. We can't go in our schools, live in this neighborhood, and put our kids in your school across town. You know, we have to apply, we have to get accepted. That's not how it is. And like I said, I can't speak for Wake County in North Carolina, but I can tell you here in Charleston County, our top schools, I can name the 4 top schools. We call them the 4 whitest schools in Charleston County because they have less than 10% of population of Black kids in them, even though they're in Black neighborhoods. They're in majority Black neighborhoods and have less than 10% of Black kids inside the school. You're talking schools that have 1,100 and 1,400 kids and got 160 Black kids.
Okay, go ahead, Danielle. What you got to say about that?
Yeah. So, Elvin, and that's where we got to start allowing each other this. I can agree with you, and I do agree with you, but at the same time, know that that's not the full story. So, absolutely, white flight was real. Charter schools were started as something a little bit more for the elite. I can agree with you on all of that. But here's where I add something in. As Black people, we have the opportunity to take advantage of it as well. That's where we're underserving our own, is because we're not taking advantage of pulling our kids from public schools and getting them into charter schools. 2, we're not taking within our community, and this is for the other brother that kept pushing Black history. You know, if you started your own charter school, as long as the prerequisite math and sciences and social studies and all of that was done, you can have as many Black American courses as you want. You can do Black history all over the world. We're not taking advantage of that and sending our kids. We're not taking advantage of that and creating those schools for our kids. Right now in North Carolina, I know a brother who's trying to open up a charter school. So we've got to stop getting mad at the opportunity that it exists for white people, or that it was started for white people, instead of saying, we got to stop doing that and start saying, all right, you started it, but now we're coming too. This is an option for our community too. That's where the ball is being dropped. Now, when you say this here, Elvin, about some Black kids not being accepted into charter schools, now let's take a look at that, because that's true as well. It is possible for a charter school to be in a neighborhood, but all of the surrounding kids in that neighborhood not be able to be accepted. Now, let's not bring up money, because here in North Carolina, you know, we've got Governor Forrest running for governor, and he's, you know, he created the Educational Opportunity Scholarship, which allows us to be able to afford the money, 1, to send our kids to private and charter and magnet schools. But here's the second thing, when we talk about aptitude and the ability to get in based on test scores and stuff like that, they have a slight advantage because, and it's not just white. Let's
It's like, you sound good. I think you might have to put the phone up.
I'm here. Here.
Oh, you push it back?
You want to talk about forehead? You want to talk about
forehead? You're in a tunnel.
Yeah, sound like you're in a tunnel. It's going.
Hold on, let me see.
Now you're good.
Now I'm good?
You good. I can hear you good.
I don't know how that happened. So what I'm saying is, money in North Carolina, our Governor Forrest, he set up for us to be able to have educational opportunity scholarships. Now let's talk about aptitude, because Elvin is correct that it is possible for a charter school to exist in a Black neighborhood that Black children can't meet the entry requirements to get into. Now let's look at why that occurs. It occurs not because the system itself is racist, it's because, and we're not just talking about white people. Can y'all hear me?
Yeah, oh, good. I can hear you good.
Okay. We're not just talking about white people, because Asian parents, I have seen them pick up 2, 3, 4 jobs to get their kids in the charter schools. Indian, East Indian. I have seen their parents do all. There's a lot of cultures. I've seen African, not just like us African Americans, but those coming over. I've seen a lot of cultures get their kids. Elvin, you got your hands up. I'm trying to figure that.
Yeah, question. So how do y'all get in charter schools in North Carolina?
Okay,
we'll get you
so
accepted.
hold on a second. Now, you got to hold that thought because I got to still develop it. So I want to get us out of this idea that it's just white people. I think we put white people up too high. I'm not impressed with white people. I love them with the love of the Lord, but I'm not impressed by them. So we've got Asian kids, which includes Asian that we know, East Indian. We've got African kids. We've got a lot of kids that take education seriously. They tend to put their kids in better schools from start all the way through. So by the time they're trying to go to that junior high school or that high school that's a magnet, they've already, through being in better schools the whole time, they're more advanced in the curriculum. So here's what we do as a Black community that takes care of our own. We step in to make sure that we're giving our own the advantages. We set up tutoring camps in places like Shakim's Community Center. And we say, guess what? You want to get your child into this school and they need these math grades and they're kind of falling around. Let's us get in there and let's be tutors for them. Let's get them to where they need to be so that they can get to those schools. So I think still, instead of hating the fact that school choice was something done and set up for initial use by elitist whites, that Black people have the opportunity to take that opportunity as well. And let's go get this. Let's go get this all the way around in business, in education, in healthcare. Let's go get this.
Okay. Can you answer that question? How do kids apply for charter schools in North Carolina?
So you get an application. Of course, they look at grades. Some charter schools start at different grades, but you apply. It's an application price. You might have to write an essay. I've not looked at all of the different requirements per school, but there's some standards to them.
Do y'all have the blind lottery pick like how we have here in Charleston, in South Carolina?
That's a good question. I don't know that.
Okay, so
I don't know if it's blind lottery or.
I can't speak for North Carolina, but I can tell you this. I'm gonna use one school for example that I know the stats off the top of my head. Orange Grove Charter is one of the greatest schools in Charleston County, right? It is also one of the whitest. It is about 88% white. You got maybe a 9, maybe 10, 11%, maybe at best 11% Black population. It's got about 1,200 seats. Of the 1,200 seats, 162 Black kids are occupied in them. Okay, so now this is what their selection process goes like. It's a blind lottery. What a blind lottery is, right? You don't know what that is? That means that supposedly when everyone applies to go to this school, the computer generally picks the amount of students that gets to come to the school. That's what it's called. It's a blind lottery. So what I want to know is how is a computer out of 1,500 choices picking only 162 Black kids?
That's a fair question.
So again, like I said, and understand that's how it's done across the boards here. So I don't know how it's done there, but so for me, that has been my fight. And one thing I've been fighting here in Charleston is like, I want somebody to explain to me, if you're telling me that the charter schools are picking off a blind lottery and it's not human pick, it's a computer, then you're telling me that this computer, Black is not the card to be in this computer because you're picking 12%.
Okay, so let me, Elvin, let me see if I can bring some understanding of both sides, right? Because what I'm hearing Danielle say is, we're too concerned about what they're doing and as far as their schools and how they pick, which there should be a concern. And I hear you, there should be a concern. We should not just allow it to run rampant and we don't benefit from state funding, right? Because we are taxpayers, we put in that part too. But I think Danielle is actually saying too is like, we have to start forming our own schools because we have the ability to utilize that particular method and avenue to help us. So it's a twofold scenario. Yes, we do need oversight because you don't want to just, like I said, you don't just want to have people that have, their private public schools for themselves, but also you don't want to get too caught up in what somebody else is doing and miss the opportunity for us to use that avenue to do exactly what they're doing, which is having more flexibility, control, and autonomy over the governance of that particular school. So I think that's where she was kind of getting at also. It looks like Elvin's live stream is messing up. But I think that's what you were saying, Danielle, if I'm correct. We don't want to get too focused on, what they're doing and why they're doing it. And so I think that's where you're going. But Elvin, he had to get off because his line is messing up. But
no,
is
that's
that
fine.
like where you're going at?
And too bad, and that's where I was going at. And too bad he left before I got the
he'll be back. No, he'll be back.
Oh, that
he's back now.
I think we all agree. That's where when we're having these discussions. Hey, Elvin, you're back.
Hey. But, yeah, I want to address this. I got knocked out. I want to address this. This is where we get dangerous.
Compliment though. No. Hold on. You're gonna wait for this compliment. I think we actually all agree, because Elvin, you're not against school choice. You just want to make sure that we got decent access. And I'm saying don't get mad and don't not use school choice because we think it's just for white elites. So we agree. Okay. I think that's great. Now you go.
But one thing I want y'all to understand this too as well. Starting your own school will not help all the kids in public schools. We can't make enough charter schools to fund the kids that still are getting left behind in public school. So while we say you can make a charter school and you can take 900 kids into your charter school out of the hood, but of the hood, you're not going to get every kid because, like you said, first of all, it's illegal to have an all-black school. You can't do that. You just can't pick all the black kids. You're going to have to make it open. So you're going to have to take kids from you, because as long as you're taking public money and charter schools are still public schools, you're still taking public funding. You can't just put it together and say, hey, we're only taking the black kids. So that means that there's going to be kids that still have to go to that public school in the hood. This is my problem, and I have with the charter schools. If you keep making charter schools, you're only taking some, but you're not addressing the problem for all. You're still leaving those kids that have to attend the failing public school struggling in the failing public school. We have to find a better system to where we can incorporate and change the public school as well, other than just say, well, this school is failing, I'm pulling my kid from it, y'all fail. Because that's generally what happens in charter school. Charter schools generally will not take the worst kid out of a public school. They're not going to take the mediocre kid. They usually take the kid who's excelling very high and has public school, and you put them in a charter school where, you can say you can challenge them more. But you're taking the best kids. Public school doesn't allow to do that. Public school doesn't have that choice. If you live in this district and Lil Jimmy's a badass, but he live in this district, Lil Jimmy has to go to this school. You see what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't work the same. And that's why it's unfair to compare public and charter schools, because charter schools have their own board. Charter schools don't have to answer to the school board. And I know, I'm just saying. So, and Shakim, you know that. You know that, Shakim, is that you put little Jimmy badass in a charter school and they can put Jimmy, they can put Jimmy out. Hey, they don't have to deal with that. Well, public school has harder rules, so they have to deal with it. It's more, charter schools don't have to recognize IEPs. They don't have to do all these things. These are things that they can, hey, we don't want nothing to do with it. We don't have to deal it because they have their own board, their own selection process. Where in a public school, if you live in this district, and I know you're going to laugh at this, but if Lil Jimmy live in your district, you're going to deal with Lil Jimmy badass. That's just it. So it's not fair to compare the two because we're not on the same playing field. We're not on the same guidelines. You get what I'm saying? It's like being an all-star coach versus a basketball coach. If I got to take the kids to sign up and all these kids are sorry, well, then we're going to try to make a team. But the all-star coach is getting the best players. You know what I'm saying? So, of course, they're going to be good.
Let me challenge that, because here's the thing. And Shakim, you can jump in, but I'm like crawling out of my chair to like address this.
Okay, come on.
Now, let's discuss this. Now, what you're saying is a very valid question that our community has. Well, what about the ones that don't or can't or won't, right? But this is where we got to start changing how we think about it, because let me tell you what's going on. We're actually reliving a different sort of representation of crabs in the basket. there seems to be this idea that amongst Black people, and it's not with any other ethnic group from what I can see, but the idea amongst Black people is, well, they either all got to be mediocre or average. Everybody's got to work at below potential so that we can feel it's fair. Instead of saying, let's do what we can with those who will or those who can, and then work on the other. So the idea that charter schools are wrong because it takes, and I went to Brooklyn Tech. I actually went to the same school AOC's father went to. And it is one of those schools that you had to take a test to get into. Now, what was good about it for me is if I would have went to my neighborhood school, right, I would have been lost in the sauce. I grew up in the projects. I know what my neighborhood schools was like. And I know when I came back from college, I still saw my neighborhood friends, some of them still stuck in the projects. Now, I say this to say, under your interpretation, I would have been lost as well, because the idea is keeping everybody at this level so that it's fair for everyone instead of letting those who can do. Now I'm coming back to try to reach others and get others, have a business where I can, own real estate where I can. So all of that to say, we've got to stop being so afraid that there's only some of us.
I think we lost her.
All
right. Listen, man. I would love to do. All right, I'm gonna just wrap with this, man. I would love this. This is a good conversation here. We need to talk about with charter and homeschool, because like I said, the biggest thing you got to understand is we can't compare charter schools to public schools. It's a whole different set of rules. It's a whole different set of rules. It's a whole different scenario. Charter schools, first of all, you understand, charter schools have their own board. They don't have to answer to the local county public school board. They have their own
So
board.
when you think that was a good thing, I mean, do you think, okay, so it all comes down to pros and cons, right? And I think one of the issues, and you brought it up, which is definitely needs to be spoken about, is how can we make sure that it's balanced? Because we don't want to tear down. It's like robbing Peter to pay Paul. We don't want to tear down the traditional schools and have the charter school doing so good, because not everybody can go to a charter school. So we got to figure out how can we balance it out to make sure that
I don't know.
Right, that the access is good. Somebody made a comment. Let me see what this says. My family have owned a small private school for years, and I have firsthand experience how a small environment outside of federal bureaucracy best result for a child on an early childhood level.
Well, see, private school is a whole different animal, though. Private school, you can't even compare private school to charter school. First of all, a lot of the children that go to private school are privileged kids because you have to pay for that. That's a whole different monster. Private school is not public school, is not charter. Charter school, just like public school, is free. Kids don't have to pay. When you go to private school, your parents have to pay. So a lot of times, if your parents can afford to send you to a private school, you're not necessarily in the class where you're worrying about and dealing with things that most kids deal with in charter and public school. My daughter, and your child goes to, my daughter went to to private school down here in Charleston. That cost me like $125 a week for her to go to school. I had to send that check in every Friday. She couldn't go back Monday. You understand what I'm saying? So it's serious. But the private school experience was awesome. First of all, it's automatically a smaller classroom. Her senior year, she might have had 7-8 kids in her classroom. You get what I'm saying? I think her senior class was like 50 kids. You get what I'm saying? So it was it's very controlled. And in private school, just like charter schools, they got their own board. They got their own set of rules. I remember seeing a kid in the private school get expelled because he violated the social media policy and bullied a kid on social media on the weekend. It wasn't even in school. But because the school had a strict policy about it and they monitor all Facebook, what you had to sign for, so you knew what it was. I mean, you couldn't get mad. The parents signed for it. The kid was well aware of it, but he tried it. He violated it. They put him out. You understand what I'm saying? So it was like, it's definitely there. My problem is this, and I'm a public school. I'm a deep public school advocate, and we have to understand when you open a public school and you have a charter school in that neighborhood, for every kid that would have went to that public school, that's funding lost at that goes to a charter school. That's funding lost for a public school. They don't get to make that money up. So if they only had a certain budget to work with and they're losing the kid, the money goes with the kid. So the school now has to either cut resources, cut services, and cut to try to make up for what they're losing in funds. And that's what causes public schools to fail.
Okay, Nicole, what's going on? How you doing?
Hi.
What's going on? So give us your perspective.
Hey,
can
Nicole.
you hear me?
Hey, we can hear you.
Hi, Alvin.
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
We saw you in the comments going off, cutting up.
I couldn't help myself. I'm definitely very, very much about education, just, all around. So it's definitely dear to my heart. And I keep my ear to the ground for anything new that's cropped up. So.
Okay, charter school versus traditional schools. What's your take on that? What's the pros and cons? Do we need the school choice option more, or do we need to stick more to the traditional method?
Well, I think I could answer that in two parts. I'm all for traditional methods. I'm all for that because I feel like that's one of those things. You don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's definitely in need of some kind of serious overhaul. There's definitely, from one district to the next, when you compare the graduation rates, when you compare scores, all of those things, you just should not see in a public school these dramatic differences from one district to the next. And if that's happening, then there's clearly something wrong. I don't know if that is curriculum based, if it's maybe presentation. For whatever reason, when you have such a dramatic change from one district to the next, there's something that needs to be identified. And if they would take the time to identify that and then implement whatever would be necessary to correct that, then I don't think that the public school option would be a bad option for most people. And it's true. And I did hear one of the first things that people look at when they are moving, when they're looking to rent, to own, where's my kid going to school? I'm one of those people. I certainly looked at that. Ironically enough, where I am, they are definitely broken. They seem to do well. They're not, a poorer district. They're not a richer district. They're in the medium, but they definitely have some things that they need to work on.
So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a quick question. So basically, are you under the assumption that charter schools do more hurt than they do good?
I think when they were first implemented, they came with this fancy new sticker that they were going to solve some problems that people were experiencing in the public schools. And I don't think it was really laid out how they were going to solve it. They just kind of put it out there that, hey, this is going to be an option. I know a lot of them like to wear uniforms, so they really put that out there like, this is a classier option to public school. It's not quite private school. So I think when they put that out there and started with those charter schools, I don't really think that they had such a well-rounded idea of exactly how they were going to be better. That being said, I think there's a lot of benefits to charter schools, and I certainly know of several that definitely have helped many students of all races, especially many students of different learning styles. So where some children were just not making it in the public school setting and happened to be special ed, when moved to the charter school, did very well. So I think that there's a place for charter schools. I hate to think that that is going to be the new way of education, is to eliminate the public schools altogether, to make these charter schools, and that's it. Because I think if that is the move they make, they'll bring the problems that the public schools already have with them. And then you'll wind up with charter schools that are smaller, but doing a lot of the same things that the public schools are doing.
Okay, so Elvin, I got this comment on the screen. Read it and kind of respond to it, because I know that you've been definitely outspoken against charter schools. recently. So look at that. Look at this right here from this one particular comment, and give me your perspective on
What
it.
it said? Charter schools, just like public schools, results
No,
of
I got it on the
surge.
screen. It said my nephew's local school is named the Crip School. Public school gave him a trap. The school choice voucher gave him a chance.
So listen, this is where this is where it is. I can't tell you charter schools are bad. Charter schools are generally going to be better than the neighborhood public school. What I'm telling you is why. Because charter schools, again, they don't have to function under the rules that the normal public school has to function under. Charter schools get to select who get to come in. They get to select, and they have another way of putting the kids out. They can expel a lot faster. Most public schools have to go under rules and guidelines, and especially if that child has an IEP or something else, it's almost impossible to get a child expelled or put out of school if that child has an IEP. One of my battles last year in being in the schools and fighting for kids, it was this one child who he had something was wrong. From August to October, this child had 42 violent referrals and could not be put out of school because he had an IEP. And he fought everybody from the kids, the principals, the teacher. I mean, it didn't matter. When he got mad, he went off. But in a public school settings, the school, because the rules are set in, first of all, he has an IEP, he couldn't put this child out. In a charter school, you get one time to try that. Charter schools have their own board, they work under their own rules. A lot of public schools would be better if they weren't regulated by so many rules. And that's why I said you can't compare the two. Again, with charter school, you can live right next door to a charter school and can't go to that school. A lot of, you know what I'm saying? That's how it is. A lot of these and again, I don't know where she's from in North Carolina, but I can tell you in Charleston County, there are a lot of majority of the charter schools, and the 4 best charter schools are in majority Black neighborhoods. You got Black kids who walk in their front yard and look across the street and can't attend that school because they can't get in. In public school settings, that's not how it works. Public school is, if you live in this neighborhood, in this district, you're going to that school. They can't close the door. They can't say no. They have to take you. Regardless if you're a gift or a problem, they got to take you. You see what I'm saying? So what's going to happen is public school is going to become the dumping ground for kids that can't get in the charter and private. That's what's going to happen. You know, you can't, if you go to a charter school, you're too bad, you get put out and you go back to your normal public school. You go to your public school. If you were going to public and private and you get put out, you go back to your public school. However, it doesn't work both ways. You can't get put out of public school and go to charter.
Okay. You see? Nicole, you was about to say something, Nicole.
Yeah.
So on the surface, all of that is true. So I won't dispute the fact that the charter schools, have their own means of student selection, if that's lottery, if that is, academics and writing and so on and so forth, that they do have a little bit more freedoms in who is attending. In terms of students that are attending public school, especially students on IEPs, and maybe gift or problem, as you would say, attending past a period of where a charter school may have had them attend. That's true. But I think what the common misconception is that just because somebody's in a public school and we'll take a student off an IEP, and maybe this is a behavioral-based IEP, something that is maybe they've got an emotional disturbance classification or something to that effect, and maybe are causing a problem. They do have rules set in place for the public schools that they must follow. Certainly, students with disabilities are going to fall under the, Individuals with Disabilities Act. So because of that, you may see them last longer, but they don't stay. And what winds up happening with a lot of those children, first step is the school says, we have this IEP, we're following this IEP, these things are not working, they're getting progressively worse, maybe we're seeing behaviors, and because of that, we need to structure the IEP differently. That could mean they'll change some things around, maybe add a couple extra classes, maybe more time in the special ed setting, something, or that could mean that they're going to now offer a different placement. So a lot of times the first rung is, do they have a school within the district that is focused on that child's specific need? So maybe the district is set up where this is their home school, but the school in the next township over is very geared towards children with like multiple disabilities. So maybe they don't speak, maybe they're wheelchair confined, so they will send them to that school, and maybe for an autistic setting, or maybe for an emotional disturbance setting. If those are settings that don't work, their next step is to move them out of district, and that often looks like they will move them to that dumping ground, and they will call that an alternative setting. They'll call that, we've got several up here that that are terrifying for where those children go, because once you go there, the focus on education is gone. The curriculum aspects, academics, they're gone. So with the charters, it's true that, you know, maybe they won't make it, so then the dumping ground is the public school. But I think the problem really lies between both public and charter. There should not be a dumping ground, but I can promise that the dumping ground will not be the public school. It will be an alternative education setting.
Well, not every county, like Berkeley County here in South Carolina, they've got, you know, they do have an alternative school, but it's not like, you know, it's one. So, you know, they only can take so many kids. So therefore, if your child can't get in, then your child is expelled. You know what I mean? So now that child is home. Not every,
which should not be the case if they have the IEP.
Yeah. And also, I mean, like, one of the rules I heard about kids on IEPs, I don't know if you know this, but a child on IEP can only be suspended 10 times a year.
They can't be suspended or meet an expulsion, because what that classifies is as a removal from placement. So you've got FAPE, the free and appropriate public education, and they have to be within FAPE. So if you have a child that is consistently doing something, again, I'll focus on the behaviors, because they tend to be the ones that most often get shuffled somewhere, that's consistently doing something that's maybe against the school policy. So this kid's like going fighting in and fighting, constantly at the teacher, cursing, slamming desks. Now they consider this an action based on just the school standards, not on this child, but on the school standards, that is unacceptable, and they need to be suspended. You can't exceed the 15 days, and you can't do more than 10 in a row. When that happens, it triggers something in the state that says, hey, this child's not receiving a free and appropriate public education because they've not been in the class setting for 10 days consecutively, or 15 days throughout the year. That triggers that for the purpose, and it's sad that it's not triggered for the purpose of education, that they're missing out on their education. That's what they would have to believe, but it would actually trigger it because they are receiving the funds. And if that child's not being taught in that building for that period of time, they want justification for, why are we giving you money and you've got this kid sitting out 15 days.
So here's the problem. So, and this is one of the biggest things teachers deal with. You're going to use little Jimmy again. You have to be very careful how you're suspending him, because like you say, once you've exceeded his 10 times, you got to figure that out. Now, what's happening now, a lot of these kids that have, I understand it's not hard for a child to take advantage of an IEP. You know what I'm saying? These kids are understanding the rules on IEP, and you get some of these kids that will even come back and tell you, you can't do that, because they understand what you can and can't do to them. And they have no problem with it. They don't care. So if I know I can't be suspended more than 10 times in a year, I don't have anything to lose. You can't kick me out. The most you can, what are you going to do? So it puts these teachers in a hard position to teach. But this is public school. Now, mind you, that rule does not apply for charter school. That rule does not apply for private schools.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. Either one of y'all can answer, and it all stems from this comment that I just read. Charter/voucher forces parents to get involved in care. My sister never went to a PTA meeting when my nephew was in public school, but the voucher program forced her to show up and be involved. So, does this mean or give credence to the argument that traditional schools need to be abolished? Now, I'm just being devil's advocate because some people are for the complete privatization of the school system. They don't want the federal government anywhere in these schools. Does this lead more credence to the argument that schools need to be privatized because of all of this bureaucracy and red tape that the government has put in these schools to where, well, you can't do this and you can't do that? Should we have more? Would it force parents to be more responsible if there were more stringent guidelines in the school system?
So let me just say this. It would. If, like she said, part of her child having that voucher is she had to go by the school rules so the child can go to the school. She had to go. She had to. That's what it is. Again, charter schools, private schools work on a whole different rule base than public schools can work on. A public school could never tell a parent, you don't come to PTA meeting so your child can't come here. They could never do that. Again, even with, like I said, with the IEPs are held at that standard at public schools. That same child with his IEP could go to a charter school, do the exact same things that he was allowed to do in public school, and charter school could put his behind out. They could say, no, you can't come back here.
Okay, Nicole, hold on. Nicole was about to say something.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I think that I guess the number one thing I see about that is I think that's a problem. I think that's a huge problem. If you are receiving a voucher for school choice and that voucher comes with strings that says, listen, you're here, so you need to participate, and so does your kid. So if you are not participating, that's a reason for your kid also not to participate in our school setting. If I find that the root of that problem is if you need to tell someone that they have got to participate because they've got the school voucher, and that's not something that they are naturally doing for their children. I can't imagine where that would be something that would fall on a public school. I think the problem is rooted in the fact that if it's a public school and the idea is, well, you couldn't tell a parent that, their child can't attend if they don't participate or they don't show up. Why? That's their child. They should be participating regardless. I'm not saying that people don't work and people don't have crazy hours and can't. I'm not saying show up to every meeting, every board meeting. None of that. I'm saying that if it took somebody getting a voucher before they decided, well, I guess I'm going to have to make this work, before participating, I don't know that falls on a public school as being a problem. I think that goes back to the parents. So I think when it comes to public schools in general, with the idea of, not being held, or we'll say held to more accountability. They love to toss that word around.
Right.
I think the idea of having IEPs and you see the one side. So as a teacher, as a special ed teacher that loves working with 6th through 8th grade, probably like my hardest. I can get through high school. I'm like 2 feet tall and they're huge, but they will listen. 6th to 8th grade, they are on something completely different. They are not quite grown, but they're not tiny, and they make that well known. So that being said, when you have that idea in the school, like, oh, well, this kid can do things and get away with it, and especially when they know, sure, when you get older, they start realizing things, they get participating into the IEPs, but it does not mean that our hands are tied. You can't suspend consecutively on the same thing, and you can't put somebody out because it's related to their disability. So I'll take something very simple. You have somebody and it's a child with Tourette's, and the Tourette's dictate in this particular instance that they use obscenities just completely out of control. Obscenities is against the rules of the school. That would result in suspension for anybody. So that becomes a little bit of an obstacle because this is this child's disability. But I think the biggest thing is that when you have a disability, you're already open to things. And so having more schools that don't have to answer if you don't fall in line, if you're not following, I think it's everybody's goal, public, private, charter, to make sure that kids, get to the point that they are out in the world, graduated and productive. So I think it's everybody's goal to teach those things, but I think that there's a little bit more of a safety net for children, and I'm not just talking emotional disturbance, I'm talking all with disabilities, that they can't just put you out because you're a square peg in a round hole. They have to try and find a way to meet your specific needs. And that tossing IEP out there, it's an individualized education program. So if you learn best through touch and feel, if you need movement breaks because you have ADD or ADHD, you can't sit for 47 minutes in a class lecture and retain anything or keep your body still. They don't have the right to hold that against you. That's something completely out of your control.
Right. Okay, so that's cool. Okay, so I was looking at the comment, and one of the comments said the public schools are abusing the IEP system for federal special ed money. They do the same thing with Head Start. This is the result of too much federal bureaucracy. So in your professional experience, when you see the IEP, do you feel that IEPs at a certain point in time are used for basically a hustle, or schools are abusing the federal money for special ed? Could it somehow? Go ahead.
I would be sure that there are some people that have malintent. So I will say that I am sure that goes on to some extent somewhere. I will say that when it comes to IEPs and receiving federal funding for special education, there is a lot of funding necessary for special education. I mean, you have children that have one-on-one aids, somebody who needs to get these children to and from class for some reason or another. Maybe they're wheelchair confined. Maybe they do have ADHD and they linger in the halls, or maybe they're autistic and they're elopers. So you have that aspect, but you also need to have a special education teacher. That person's going to program for that. And that's going to happen because they have to collaborate with the general ed teacher and find out, what are we teaching? What are you teaching these children? Okay, now I need to translate that into something this child learns. Then on top of it, you've got, we've got sensory rooms. So those kiddos that need to move, or those kiddos that learn by touch, those kiddos that need to work on social, they do that. In sometimes you're lucky enough, you've got those school districts that have a lot of money. You've got swings in there and giant rolling balls and for leg move. Some you don't have as much. They've got wobbly chair. You have so many different things that go into the funding of that, believe it or not, it behooves a district to do what they can to educate that child and meet the requirements of the IEP. Because when they don't, what winds up happening is, like I had mentioned with Elvin earlier, they start moving them around because they are held, to the flame for providing an appropriate education for these children. And if they can't do it, they often have to send them out of district. And that could look like something that's an approved private school. So the funding will filter through the district into that school. That could look like something that's not approved, which means that district now does not receive funding for that particular student, which they are to be using for the education of that student. But they often have to pay through a settlement or through, mediation to send that child on their dime outside of district. So it definitely does cost them to not do what they're supposed to be doing.
Wow. Man, that's crazy.
I got a side note if you'd like to know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I did. Great. So I'm not supposed to talk too much about this, but let's just say I may know somebody who had a child who went to their home school. That did not work. And that was 2 years in the making, back and forth, back and forth. They sent that child to another school within the district. So yes, that child did move, but it's still a free and appropriate public education. The funding just gets transferred over. They're doing what they're doing. That did not pan out well. That actually made it progressively worse. This is all through the fact that they were not meeting the IEP and the needs of the student. Because of that, the option to go out of district came up, and the suggested placements were less than appealing. That being said, that parent went out, did the research, found a placement that was more appropriate and seemed to be able to cater to this child's needs, specifically social, emotional, behavioral, and academically. That placement costs upwards of $30,000 a year. Ooh. So the school is not educating, because when you go out of district, you sign over a FAPE, in essence. So they say, we are not responsible for educating this child. We are not held to whatever may happen from here on out in their education, because they are out of placement and they're out of our suggested placement. So that's on you as the parent. So if you find in a year that this was not a good idea, we told you so, but we'll sign off and now we'll pay for it. So It doesn't behoove them to not answer the IEP and the needs of the student, because they can find themselves paying in addition to what they have to spend to educate their own students, to educate a student that lives within their district that they cannot program for.
Wow. Okay, so this person right here, Republicans Reprisal. So they're talking about the debate between public school and, well, private sector and public. So basically what it looks like this individual is saying is that the government has never been good at anything versus the private sector. Do we really, just for you being in the education field, do you believe that the private sector should be trusted more to have influence over the education system than the government?
Well, I think the biggest question is, with public schools and people that are very thrilled with their districts and people that are not thrilled with their districts, people that are, from money and not from money, people that are, white or other minority, whatever the situation is, the question is, kind of like, if the public schools and what they're teaching and what they're doing, will say, a lot of people talk, they have an agenda, it leans left, they want to teach this, that, and the other thing, they don't explore. So, and I'm not saying yay or nay to that. I'm saying that the idea is that the public schools are in and under a control of somebody that's got their own agenda. Mm-hmm. And when you go to private, you have to be aware that that's the case. It's just on a smaller scale. So you will win if you are in a setting where that agenda lines with what you think should be taught. If you think that, there should be a big focus on the arts in education, and you think there should be a big focus on culturally, evolve things. So music and art and all of those, and you are happy with that because you're in this public school or private school, and those are the focuses, then you are great. If you are in a private school and the focus tends to be on the maths and sciences, they leave the other stuff fall because they know that maths and sciences are going to get you the job. And then they want to get you there into that next step because you may need funding, or So they're going to push the sports, push sports so that you can get out there and possibly get some scholarships.
Right.
And that's not something that leads, for your child's education purposes. Maybe your child is not sports. Maybe they're not strong in sciences. Maybe it is the English that they are in, language arts. Maybe it is the arts, and that's how they excel. You can find yourself in the same type of scenario as you find yourself in a public school, in a smaller private or charter school. It depends on what those people running that operation really have as their end game.
Oh, okay. Well, hey, Nicole, I definitely appreciate you coming on. It's been real. We got to definitely continue to have these discussions. I believe that it helps us to expand our information base, and it allows people to see different sides of the spectrum, especially with dealing with education. Education is a subject that is dear to us, and I think we just don't talk about it as much. And we kind of neglect it and put it on the back burner. And by doing that, it only hurts our children. It only helps our job market. It only hurts our future also. So I believe having these discussions and really getting down and shaping, or I would say monitoring the process. When we don't monitor the process, how it does, then it just becomes, a ball of confusion, and we find ourselves in these situations having these type of discussions when I think we should be more proactive. So we're going to definitely continue this. We've been on a couple hours. I am exhausted, but Nicole, the next one we're going to have you back on first. And I appreciate y'all. And I will inbox you in a few, Nicole. Thank you very much. And,
awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yes, ma'am.
Anytime. Education.
Yes, ma'am. All right. Take care, Nicole.
All right. Bye.
All right.